We pushed over the side 4 Hueys and 1 Chinook helicopter. If we didn't push the helos over the side to make a spot for them, those other helicopters with many people on board would have to have landed in the water. And of course, many people would have lost their lives.
But no one died, says 83-year-old Vern Jumper, air boss of the USS Midway, on that drizzling day, April 29, 1975, when the historic 2-day rescue mission, Operation Frequent Wind, began.
We rescued 3,073 refugees in a 30-hour period.
From 4 stories above the flight deck, the ship's air boss is an air traffic control commander.
But I stood right here watching everything.
Responsible for the lives of pilots and crew in the near heart-stopping launch and landing of aircraft on the carrier's tiny runway.
At one time, on the afternoon of the 30th, we counted 21 Huey helicopters circling the Midway, and we got every one of them aboard. Every one.
At just 3 football fields long, this was one of the busiest airports in the world. Aircraft touched down at 150 miles an hour in an area the size of a tennis court.
This was the most dangerous 30 hours I'd ever seen on an aircraft carrier.
Because?
Most of these helos that were landing were running out of fuel. If one of those helos would have crashed on the flight deck, we would have lost innumerable number of people would have lost their lives or been injured.
Then, as if the stakes weren't high enough, this stolen, small, 2-seater fixed-wing plane wobbled over the Midway's landing deck, twice, dropping notes that blew overboard.
He had no radio. We had no way to talk to him.
A desperate last note, stuffed into a leather gun holster, finally lands on the deck.
That note said, and I'm quoting now, "Can you move those helicopters to the other side? I can land on your runway. I can fly 1 more hour. We have enough time to move. Please rescue me." And he signed it, Major Bung, wife, and 5 child.
After the ship's choppers were moved, South Vietnamese pilot Major Buong Lee landed his young family safely, just 100 feet short of the ocean.
He did it.
In the following hours, about half of the refugees on the Midway were taken to nearby ships. The remaining 1,600, including many women and children, remained on board, with more than 3,000 sailors and personnel.
On the hangar deck, I had roughly 20 aircraft and just hundreds of refugees living underneath these aircraft. We found bubble wrap and blankets for them to lay on. And the sailors were playing with the kids. They were making toys for the kids. It was just beautiful.
But there were no safety ropes or rails on the decks.
We had little kids running all over this flight deck and hangar deck, but not one little kid went over the side. That in itself was a miracle.
But after all these years, Jumper's eyes still reveal the personal toll of making life and death decisions for thousands of people.
It was emotional, I have to admit that, because as I said, it was very dangerous and my heart was in my throat half the time. I was so frightened that one of those helos would crash on this flight deck, but it didn't happen.
Still, Jumper calls that day a sad end to the Vietnam War.
These poor people, and you can see the dread in their faces. Here they're leaving their homeland, all their worldly goods in a pillowcase. Little kids, just scared to death.
As for what it's like now to see generations who owe their lives to the mission he accomplished 40 years ago, Jumper humbly passes the buck.
And I send the praises, all the praises to the Vietnamese because they settled in our country and really became great citizens, hard-working people. They're successful, and I'm so proud of them.
Peggy Pico, KPBS News.